Welcome to Relationship Mastery, a podcast for those who want to learn how to master the art of creating happy, healthy, and loving relationships. Please join me, Adey-Jones, and my co-host, Barry Selby, each Tuesday at 1 p.m. Pacific for a lively and informative conversation on everything to do with relationships. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us again.
Yes,
Hi, Barry.
indeed. Hello, Del. Good to be back.
I know, I miss you. I think I see more of you than I do of my boyfriend.
I'm sorry to hear that. You need to do some changes in that. We'll talk about that another time, about making time for your relationship.
Yeah, no, I'm teasing. Actually, we just came from a lovely week up in San Luis Obispo, so
I figured
but I
you, yeah.
am getting used to our little weekly dates together. So it's
Yes.
fun.
Mhm.
So yeah, we did get another question, and this is episode 15 now, and we've talked a lot about the relationship that you have with yourself. And
Oh,
we
yeah.
had a question like, what is that relationship that you have with yourself? So I got a lot to say about this, but why don't you take it away, Barry, and then we'll just
Okay. Well, I'll
add to
start with
it.
yeah. Well, for me, the thing about it is that, especially, because we talked about codependency in previous episodes, and the thing is that codependency is largely oftentimes rooted in seeking outside relationship to feel like we've got value or that we have what we want. And most people aren't taught and educated from a healthy place about looking within first. Because some people think if you're looking at yourself too much and being too selfish, in quotes, then you're being narcissistic. So it's like we've covered both areas, but the truth is, relationship with self, to me, is above both of those. It's a much healthier thing, which is how do we really, I would say, how do we take care of ourselves, even when we're not in a relationship, or if we are in a relationship, independent of outside influence? How do we deal with the internal? And that's a lot of work on my clients because of my own journey. And I think you've had the similar journey about that relationship with ourselves. I say it this way, the longest relationship we have in our lives is the one with ourselves, the one in the mirror. So why don't we put some energy and some commitment into that relationship as much of, at least, or even more so than other relationships? Because we are the ones we need to take care of, because when we're in a relationship, it's not about the other person as much as it's about how we are in that relationship. So that's sort of the framework I want to put in place for today.
Yeah, no, that's great, and love what you're saying there. And it really is. It's the I remember once I was dating somebody years ago, and I would say, "Well, I feel this," and he kept saying, "Why do you keep saying I? Like you're the most important person in the whole world." And I mean, he was a narcissist, and I said,
Mhm.
I'm just using I because I'm talking, I don't want to sort of lump you in this. I'm just saying
Right.
I, and I'm not doing the you. I'm just saying I." But he couldn't get over that. He thought it was just incredibly selfish and self-involved to say I. So,
My God, it's funny because that's something that happens also. I've talked to people that before when they use you all the time,
yeah.
saying you're talking about me, it's not about yourself. Because the thing is, some people do that where they'll say, when you do this and when you do that, when you do that, when you're talking to anybody, and it's like, no,
Yeah.
what you were doing is the right thing to do, and he didn't honor that. It's like, yeah, he definitely has some issues.
No, exactly. Yeah, it didn't last very long. But
Right.
what I was going to also say is
Mhm.
that for me, the big game changer for me when well, again, just like you, as I said, I used to sort of be in relationship with other people and make all the focus about them, and I was self-sacrificing and certainly not, taking care of myself in the relationship, which can lead to resentment when you do that. And
Yes.
resentment is your body's way of saying you've given more than you can afford to give. It's actually a wonderful internal little alarm that says, "Hey, be careful here now. You're not being authentic with what you're giving."
Right.
You're either giving because you want to be accepted, or you're afraid of being left, or whatever it is. You're giving more than is healthy in the relationship. The other thing that for me was huge in that sort of relationship with the self is, we always hear, well, you've got to learn to love yourself. Like we're a separate being out there that we've got to learn to love. Like this
Yep.
really, dysfunctional being out there needs our love.
Hmm.
And I always say that it's like, for me, the big change was when I really accepted, and again, for people that are on the podcast, they can't see this. This is my little snow globe with my Buddha in the center. That reminds me of who I am at my center, the spiritual
Yeah.
being. And when you shake the snow globe, as we all know, we have a lot of this cloudy thinking. We have all that, and it's obscuring who we really are. And when
Right.
we over identify with that human part of ourselves, that thing that we think is out there, it's not, it's we're all one, spiritual and human rolled into one. When
Hmm.
we're coming from just the human part of ourselves, that's where we have insecurities, and we doubt ourselves, and we we fight with ourselves. For God's sake, we put ourselves down more than we would do with any other human being, especially if you're a mother or a father. We talk to ourselves like we would never talk to our children or to our best friends or to our partners or to our parents. We just have this internal dialogue that is pretty brutal with
Hmm.
ourselves. And so we have to sort of look at that, and number one, realize that that's just energy running through us. That thinking we have has got nothing to do with we really are, and to stop focusing on that and trying to change it. Just accept that it's energy moving through us, and that happens to everybody. And so that's the first thing that I learned to do, was change my relationship to my thinking about myself. That was
Right.
huge. And then I started settling into that place, that spiritual energy that we all come from, where we're all equal. And when I'm in that place, there is no judgment or put down or anything. It's just love and acceptance and that confidence that we are actually born with. I mean, when you look at toddlers and things like that, they're not cautious. They're running around, and they're just, they've got this inbuilt confidence. And what all that's happened when we say we suffer from low self-esteem or low confidence is we've just started believing that thinking in our head that puts us down. So those are I just wanted to share that because those were pivotal in how I changed my relationship with myself. Prior
Oh.
to that, I was like not good enough, and
Mhm.
therefore, as you say, always looking for the outside validation. Am I good enough? Am I lovable? And I think now I'm so secure within myself that I don't need that. I really, it's pretty amazing.
Right. Well, actually, I want to go take your first one and I want to say attack it, uh, view it from another angle, is because
Hmm.
so I definitely had that paradigm, and I think a lot of us have this programming. Maybe the wrong word to use in this context, but we take on basically how people talk to us as being the truth about ourselves more than we take on the value of our own stuff. And that's the thing, is we let other people's opinions of us have a stronger input on our self belief than our own personal relationship with ourselves, which is one of the things that I know I went through a lot because I was fed a lot of content that wasn't really true about me when I was younger.
Yeah.
So
For it,
this
can you give me an example? Was that verbal, or was that just your
oh,
interpretation of the environment?
it was basically kind of both, because when I get, because I think I shared before about being bullied in high school.
Hmm.
I spent 5 years basically being pushed on by the other boys, and their opinion of me wasn't very high. And
Yeah.
so I tended to start believing what they were saying, because the feedback from them and the experience I had was almost like I started becoming a self-fulfilling prophecy of what they were telling me, in a way, because I didn't have high self-esteem. It was at me, I mean, until many years after that. So I definitely carried the weight of false belief in myself because of what other people said. And that's the thing, is had I known back then what I know now, boy, you know, hindsight 20 maturity and experience is so massive. But there's a quote I love saying, which is kind of summarize what you said as well, which is really, if we treated our friends like we treated ourselves, we wouldn't have any.
Hmm. Yeah.
Because we do have this tendency to really berate ourselves and give ourselves a lot of flack unjustly, and certainly not accurately. That if we really saw ourselves as we really are, and yes, as you were saying about that spiritual being sense, being that sort of centered core being of who we are, we would be in awe of that, not out of ego place, but out of pure gratitude for being who we are.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
frankly, if we could carry ourselves in the world, frankly, if everybody in the world, here's an ask, if everybody in
Mhm.
the world carried themselves with that level of gratitude for being themselves, for being okay as a human being, independent of outside environments, of their trappings of life, or of their friendships even, if they carried that level of appreciation of who they were as a really caring, kind human being, we would stop wars, I
Mhm.
believe. So we've
Yeah.
got work to do.
No, exactly. And this is what I teach all the time. It's the foundation of what I teach. I mean, as I
Right.
said, I mostly work with people with codependency who suffer from narcissistic abuse. But when you really know yourself at that level, you do not, well, number one, it's not egotistical by any means. As you say, I very much live from that place now because I just know I've had very little negative chatter in my head. Thank God. It was there for the first 50 years.
Right, but
Um,
you've done,
yeah,
you know.
exactly. Well, what I did is I just saw something so clearly. I
Mhm.
just saw that I was equal to everybody else, and
Yeah.
and 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 everybody else was equal to me. There was no less than or better than. And when you just sit in that place, sit in that power, the seat of the soul, whatever you want to call it, lower dantian, you just come from that place, and you're not up here, up in your head, judging and comparing yourself and feeling less than and listening, as you say. I mean, I think most of us, if we've had any of that internal negative internal dialogue, most of it has happened when we were younger. Very few people are so aggressively rude, but also the suggestion, like that's why I asked you, was it actually overt or was it covert? Because I
Hmm.
think my father's abandonment of me was he didn't say you're not good enough, but it was my
Right.
interpretation. So I was spinning that story in my head, and I carried it. It was my sort of, the only way a child could make sense of why a parent couldn't love them was it has to be my fault. So
Hmm.
when you have that thinking, of course you're going to show, you don't have, I mean, my God, you don't have any relationship with yourself if you're buying into that. But yeah, when you really realize who you are at your center, 99% spiritual, just one tiny wonderful little percent of human that is quirky and weird and different from everybody else.
Yeah.
But when we come from that absolute assurance that we are equal to everybody else, you just stop all the, oh my God, the insecure thinking and the everything. You do what you do, and if you fall
Hmm.
flat on your face, you laugh and you say, well, at least I tried. And you don't berate yourself, because it's courageous to try. It's courageous to make mistakes. We've been fed in this culture that, to avoid making a mistake. Well, if you avoid making mistakes, you're not living, you're not out there trying new things.
Right.
Yeah.
In fact, I mean, people would not be in relationship if they didn't put the effort out to explore, to
Yeah.
risk failure. And the thing is, that's the thing is, and since we're talking about relationships as well as part of our theme for this podcast, that every relationship we have is based upon the one we have in the mirror first. And
Hmm.
so the quality of the relationship we choose oftentimes is a reflection of where we think about ourselves in our lives. So we start looking at relationships and thinking, I'm not feeling very happy about the relationships I'm in. They're not working for me. Maybe you want to look at yourself and say, okay, am I devaluing my own self perception to fit those paradigms?
Yeah.
Because some people I know, when I'm working with some of my clients, they've definitely raised the bar, so to speak, of their own self evaluation, and
Mm.
consequently raised the bar of any friendships they include and relationships they attract, because they realize the value of who they are, the quality of life that they have now chosen to step into because of their own self regard,
Yeah.
means that the relationships they choose to enter have to match that. And that changes everything for them.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, even, and it's so subtle because people pick up on energy. It doesn't matter what you say, how you show up. I
Right.
mean, I showed up looking very successful and together and all of this stuff, and it was a complete and utter front.
Hmm.
Inside I had insecurities. Inside I
Yeah.
didn't think I was, but what did I do? When I came from that place, I attracted narcissistic relationships because I didn't value myself, so they didn't value me. It just was so evident. And when I did that, took that 18 months off dating and everything, and I really, really took the time to be with myself and see, how value my values and my inherent, resilience and wisdom and all of that stuff that we all have. Once I really embodied that and came from that place, of course I attracted somebody that completely loved me unconditionally and adores me. And
Yeah.
so, we are grateful. I'm not to blame if you're being victimized in a relationship. It's not to blame you, but to just have you look at what energetically is still not working within yourself. Are you truly, truly, absolutely embracing everything that you are, not judging yourself, not criticizing yourself, not putting yourself down, because it will reflect back to you in your relationships if you don't genuinely believe how amazing we all are.
Well, and that's the thing, because that can sound like that you're setting yourself above other people, but it's not. As you said so many times, it's clear that what we're doing is that we're valuing who we are
Yeah,
and recognizing we're the same as everybody else.
yeah,
But a lot of people have a position where they don't see themselves equal to everybody else, so then they start judging above or below, and they end up with this um, unfairness chip on their shoulder, which doesn't belong there because they
yeah,
don't feel like they're getting what they deserve. The thing also I want to come back to, and this is the core of my work, so I keep talking about it as well, is when we go through relationship breakups, when we go through relationship transformations and changes, oftentimes we end up having um, what ends up being a steamer trunk of bullshit we carry with us from past breakups about what we did wrong and what we didn't do right, or what they didn't do to us, and what we did, all these different self-recrimination things that are inaccurate. And a lot of what I mean, my new program I'm launching is about this. Is about how do people unpack that steamer trunk and get rid of all that stuff they're carrying so they can be free to love again. Because we, as human beings who go through relationships, and I've been out for a long time because the work I'm doing keeps me busy, is that we have this clarity of what happened before happened before. What can we learn from it, and what do we not need to carry anymore, so we can move
yeah,
forward in a healthy way? Because every
yeah,
relationship, like you're choosing, the 18 months you chose to be alone was really the chance to really build a new relationship with yourself,
yes,
to really start to
100%.
shed the old facades you were carrying that weren't true to you. And so
Hmm.
having that recognition and then choosing to be the new, not being new, but choosing to be the authentic person that you are
Hmm.
and not carry those false beliefs. The world saw you differently and then presented you with a different sort of person, which is why you're now the
Exactly.
relationship you're in.
Yeah, well, and I love, and it's true. It's not. I didn't become anything different. I actually settled back into the truth of who I was at my essence before I was listening to all this BS in my head telling me I was less than. And two other things I wanted to comment on that is, I have, clients saying to me like, "Oh, I can't believe I stayed in that so long," or "It's embarrassing," I this, and I'm like, it's never embarrassing.
Yeah.
It's, everybody, me and everybody else on the planet is always, we're basically doing what we do based on our thinking in the moment and our level of consciousness. And sometimes, I call consciousness as not so much the ladder system, but as an aperture, like a camera lens. Sometimes our consciousness expands and we see more and we understand more. And depending on what mood we're in or what's happening in our life, we can contract and get very
Yes.
narrow vision. And we can, excuse me, excuse me, we can act out from that. We can act out from that lower level of consciousness or that tightened aperture of consciousness and do things that, if we'd felt better or had we would have done better. So it's just a really just forgive
Yeah.
yourself for the mistakes we've made. And as you say, everything, I love Michael Singer. And, when he says every single thing that happens to in life to us is for us, it's never against us. So even when we make mistakes, we've got a gift from that.
Yeah.
So
The thing is, I like things work too. But the thing is that it is that thing about, if we know better, we'll do better
yeah.
unless we forget.
Yeah.
Because that's the
Yeah,
truth. It's like,
the aperture. It closes
exactly.
when we're ill, we're
Hey,
sad, we're
let me,
down.
let me say this to anybody watching this. If you don't know what the aperture is, just remember that you may be spiritual and zen when you're at home or when you're in your spiritual center or in nature. But when you're driving the freeway, you might notice your aperture closes a little bit.
It's so
you
true.
know,
Gosh, you said something else earlier that I wanted to pick up on, but it's gone right now. But
like,
it'll come back.
so
So
well, then speak up things. So I'll say, because you mind percolating with that. This thing we talk about relationship with ourselves. Reason why we keep saying it, which if you haven't already got the point by now, is because it is the most pivotal part of the work you can do. Because the other part of this is that when you're trying to navigate relationships and you've had issues and problems and everything else, it isn't your job or even your ability to fix the other person. The true work that you can do that's accessible and that is successfully, excuse me, the possibility of success is higher, is the work that you do with yourself. So that's why the relationship with yourself is so vital in your journey to have a healthy relationship with anybody else. because the
Mm.
one thing you have governance over. And let me be clear, you do not have governance over other people. You may want it, but you don't have it.
And you probably noticed it by now because it doesn't matter how much you've nagged and pointed out the other person's attitude, then they haven't changed. And
Exactly.
the other thing I wanted to bring up was that I always say as well in relationships, it's like, oh, here it is. It's my little glass heart here. And I always feel like,
Props.
yeah, I've got all my props, I've got all my crystals, everything around me on my desk.
I'm getting some myself. I'm feeling left out.
But this is what we tend to do, I think, as well, is we go, here's my heart, take care of it. And then
Oh
we're
yeah,
going, oh, you're not taking care of it as well as I would. And it's like, no, it's not the other person's responsibility.
exactly.
You take care of yourself. You, like you said, it's the longest relationship you're ever going to have. Nobody knows what you need better than you know. And
Right.
when we have this expectation that, we hand over our well-being to somebody else to take care of, and then we're criticizing them for how well they're taking care of it, it sets it up for your relationships up for disaster. And I'm not saying that we don't care for each other, but we don't make it the other person's responsibility to take
Yes.
care of us. It's our responsibility. And it's so easy. I mean, like I said, it didn't take an awful lot of work for me to really, really see that any insecurity I had, anything that was less than loving and peaceful, was coming
Mhm.
from my ego, coming from my personal thinking, that was sort of telling me things to keep me safe, it thought, but it was putting me down. Um, but when we actually see that, oh no, that just is what our brains do. It just, creates problems and then tries to solve them. It's just innocently making stuff up, and it's not the truth of who we are. So the more you just settle into that place, the more, as you said, it changes the world. We certainly don't need to put other people down for thinking differently or being different from us. We just get on with our business. We take care of our side of the street and make sure that that's as clear and as well cared for as possible. And then we can
Yeah.
all come together in a much healthier, more beautiful way.
It still amazes me that we have this thing about giving somebody else our heart, our wishes, our dreams to take care of.
Hmm.
Barely know that person at times.
Hmm.
And it's this insanity of how we do things. And like to your point, it's true that we're the only one who can really take care of our own heart. And if we went into relationships and if our vows were, I'm going to take care of myself to the best of my ability to be a better partner versus, I'm dedicated to you until death do us part and, all this sort of stuff. It's like, no. I mean,
Yeah,
yes, there's a desire to be with that person through sickness and health, as in when somebody has issues, you don't run away.
yeah.
But at the same time, your job as a human being in a relationship is to take care of your own heart so you can
Mhm.
be a better lover for the other person, which makes sense when you think about it.
Yeah. Oh, I know what I was going to say. You were talking about the heart or something. When I had my last breakup, it was really traumatic for me. And people were, like, God, how will you ever trust again? How could you ever love again? And all this stuff. And again, that relationship with myself, taking that time when I saw the truth that we are all created equal and we all come onto this planet with the same amount of, resilience and well being and wisdom within us. We've all got our own. When I really, really tapped into that, I thought, oh my God, I survived hell basically when I was a child and during, this last relationship I had that was dysfunctional. And I thought, look how resilient you are. Look how strong you are. So it made sense for me then to go, well, if I'm that strong and resilient, then of course I'm going to love again because I know that even if I get my heart broken again, I'll be fine. And so the
Mhm.
more that you do have that relationship with yourself, the stronger, the more confident, the more capable, the more resilient you are, the more you get out into the world because it's not that you don't depend on other people. I have wonderful people that I depend on, friends and family, and my
Okay.
beautiful fiance and my children. I depend on them in a very healthy way. But I know that ultimately, I depend on myself and I
Yes.
am, and that's what I said. That's what I learned was I am much stronger than I ever thought I was.
Mhm.
So it's a wonderful opportunity to also to get to know myself on that level too.
Yeah. That's probably the biggest gift anybody can give themselves, is to really take the time to become more their own best friend in a way. And
Hmm.
yes, it is that piece, because we are going to have it. We are in a community. We are in a relationship with many other people in different levels. So, like you're saying, with family, and then with fiance and everything else. So we do depend on those people, but in a way, you want to do it consciously, but set up agreements with those people.
Yeah,
You know, just
exactly.
because the habit we get into is we start to projecting other people. Well, they're going to take care of me because they're this person. It's like, did you ask them first? Isn't
Okay.
you know?
Barry,
So
that's our
sorry.
next show. We're going to talk about agreements versus expectations.
Oh, I like that one. Yes,
That's,
we're definitely.
oh,
That
that's a
will
good
be
one.
way more than 2 minutes to talk about that topic. Yes, we can get into that
Exactly.
one.
But yeah,
But
I
but
love what you're saying. It is. It's that sort of we healthily, in a healthy way.
Mhm.
We all, depend on each other to be, to show up in integrity and in honesty and things like that. There's that,
Yeah.
that we have these agreements with each other. But there was another thing also that I was saying. You said that was one of the best gifts you can have in the relationship with you have with yourself. But the other
Hmm.
one, which was huge for me, and this was a result, and that is that inner wisdom we have. Because
Hmm.
when I was a child, I felt that I learned to not trust my wisdom.
Ah,
My mother in an innocent way would say things like, no, 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 that didn't happen. No, that's not true. No, he didn't mean it that way. Or no, he didn't touch you like that. It was just, and my wisdom was telling me it didn't feel good. I didn't like it. It wasn't.
yeah.
And what happens is when you have somebody, a parent or a caregiver or caretaker rather, start telling you not to trust your wisdom's never gone anywhere. It's always talking to you. But what happens is you tune out, you just stop listening to it and you start listening to the thinking in your head. And
Right.
that again was the huge gift I received by working on my relationship with myself, was that as I say, stop tuning into the sort of chatter in my head, and instead to just settle down. And boy, my wisdom was loud and clear, and I saw
Hmm.
how I'd been ignoring it for years. It was trying to tell me things, and I kept pushing it down and allowing my fearful thinking in my head to dictate what I did in life instead of following my wisdom. So that was, I would say, one of the biggest gifts, besides seeing how resilient and strong I was and things like that. But being in touch with your inner wisdom, is just incredible as well. Another big gift from that relationship with yourself.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, we talked in this episode about the relationship itself, but the truth is, this topic is something much bigger than what we can cover in just 25 minutes, 30 minutes, because the journey of relationship itself is a lifelong journey.
Hmm.
And all I can say to anybody listening to this and watching this is that if you choose to make 5 minutes a day to check in with yourself, to actually put your hand over your heart or look in the mirror or do some journaling, do something that reconnects you back to yourself to discover more about who you really are, it will pay back dividends like you wouldn't believe.
Yeah.
If you commit to more than that, better results. It's a matter of how much you put in, how much you get out. And frankly, any relationship you want to have in your life starts with that self support first. It'll
Hmm.
be much better quality than you've ever had before. That's why I'm so adamant, and we both are adamant about this work we do, is to help our clients really learn how to have a healthy relationship with themselves. So that way, a relationship they retract afterwards becomes of a higher quality, of a higher level, of a more joyful experience.
Yeah.
So the work is worth it.
And just one last thing on that note, because we've come to the end again. But I think I agree, Barry. This is another. I think we can carry on this topic in another show. But that is the. I have completely forgotten what I was going to say. Oh,
Oh, you said it beautifully.
oh my God. Okay, that's it. We have to do a second show because I'm going to remember this in about 10 minutes. I need a little scratch pad here to put my.
So right there, by the way, little teaching moment. The fact you forgot what you were going to say and you just totally laughed it off and made clear it's going to happen. It's going to happen again. It's going to come back.
Yeah,
There was no negativity, no doubt in there.
yeah,
That's an example of how to do this. So that's
exactly.
perfect.
Exactly. I was talking earlier about make mistakes. It's fun.
See?
And I just demonstrated it. Well,
Yes.
I remembered what I was going to say, but we've come to the end of our time today. So we will
Oh,
definitely
suspense.
suspense, exactly, a cliffhanger. So you have to stay tuned to find out what it is I meant to say, but next time.
Indeed. We'll
Okay.
definitely be talking about this more.
All right. All right. Well, have a
All right.
wonderful week, everybody. Thank you
Take
so
care of
much.
yourselves.
All right. Bye-bye.
We trust you enjoyed this episode and invite you to share this with your friends and loved ones. In fact, please subscribe to our Relationship Mastery podcast. That way you'll get each new episode fresh and shiny as soon as it is released. We'd love to hear from you as well. So go ahead and enter your questions and comments at relationshipmastery.show. Take good care. We will connect with you in our next episode of Relationship Mastery.